I do know that Sharif, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, is gonna fly to Saudi Arabia, like today or tomorrow, or like right after these talks. Apparently, it's announced that he's gonna have an emergency flight to Saudi Arabia. I think it's really strange that they're sending those military planes over, and he's going there. I have no idea why so far, but the negotiations started about 9 hours ago. They took about two breaks. They had dinner. Some people are saying they had dinner together, like all in one room. I don't know if that's true. Some of the negotiations were conducted indirectly, so they were just like the U.S. is in one room. They talk to some Pakistani people, and the Pakistanis go to the Iranian room, and whatever. Um, and then some people are saying that they did meet face to face, and that Vance and Arachchi apparently were almost like yelling at each other. I don't know, like if those are confirmed to be true, but if we take a step back, we know that I feel like Ghalibaf could give up the uranium because they think about the hey, let me like survive to like 24, 48 hours forward. And the uranium thing is like, okay, we're gonna lose our supporters completely if we give that up. But I
Yeah.
think the Strait of Hormuz is something that the US is like uncompromising on no matter what. And Trump was saying no matter if they negotiate or not, we're gonna open it up anyway. And they sent a destroyer in or two destroyers in to like minesweep. I don't know if I don't even know if they have minesweeping capabilities on those ships. I don't know if that's like a farce or not. The Islamic State media said we turned their ships around. We brought some ships into the Strait of Hormuz and we forced the destroyers to turn around. So there's a ton of like back and forth misinformation, information going on right now. We don't really know exactly what's happening because both sides are saying opposite things. But we do know that the strait is uncompromising. So yeah, and the regime, their only leverage, I think, in my opinion, their real only leverage isn't the uranium, it's the strait. Because if you give up the strait right now, then the US can just pretty much take the uranium anytime they want in the future. But if they gave up the uranium right now and keep the strait, they're still applying maximum economic pressure, is what I'm thinking. But I want to know what you think as well.
Isn't it really hard to take out the uranium? Like it's not just laying there to go pick up. Like it's like you need to do a lot of digging, and there's so many periods like of nighttime that you have to go through. Like this is like a couple of days of operation. Like it's not just there. Like oh, let's pack it up and go. Like I think it's like it looks like it's such a complicated operations to be able to take the uranium out.
Yeah, they
Yeah, that's
actually came and covered up. They put even more dirt on top of the Natanz tunnels. They came in, I think, a couple days ago, and they did that again
it's
in
it's gonna take
anticipation.
months. We can't wait for that.
So if you wanna take out the uranium, you'd have to do the same thing you did with the rescue of the pilot. You have to make some sort of like forward base near Natanz, which
Yeah,
is
but
a city of Isfahan. You have to bring in excavating teams. You have to bring in scientists. All of these people have to be protected the entire time. It's like immensely difficult.
But here's the thing, like this is what I think a lot of people don't know. Apparently, if any operation takes over one more than one nighttime period, then it becomes astronomically more complicated, right? So that saving that pilot, okay, it's basically they had to do it over one night. Like as soon as it becomes more than one day long, that means that you're going through daylight while your forces are on the ground, and that exposes them a lot more than basically going in at nighttime, doing the operations, and getting out. So anything longer than a day becomes like you can't just go in and do. You can't just spend in like special operations is for like short boom, get it done and get out. If you want to do something that might take days, then you need to like create a whole other structure. You need to put so much things there to protect your forces while you're there, like, and it becomes a completely the nature of that operation will completely be different.
Yeah. Also addressing the head of the central bank coming. So I was saying yesterday that one of the preconditions for the Islamic Republic to even start the talks was, hey, we want you guys to freeze up or unfreeze like $6-7 billion was what they were
Right.
asking for. So they brought in the central bank chief
Oh,
so that when those assets are unfrozen, that gets into the central bank, which by the way, the Central Bank of Iran is a completely failing bank. It's a terrible, terrible abomination. It's completely failing.
wow. I mean, by the way, there was some news came out from the Islamic Republic that the Americans have released their frozen assets in Qatar, and that this was a win for them. And then the Americans came out and said, like, that's fake news. That never happened. So that's interesting. Yeah, I saw Jeffrey wanted to respond. Oh, yeah, thank you, Danny. Jeffrey wanted to talk about this. Well, I'm interested. Jeffrey, can you explain it in a way that we could understand? Like, I really want to understand the like how complicated these operations are. But I do want to also be able to understand what you're saying. I want to understand all of it, not like 70% of it. So if you could explain it in a way that we could actually digest what you're saying, that would be really good.
I'll do my best. So sub-T or subterranean operations are very extreme and difficult. Think of like the danger of, I just talked about this at a political event today. So think of the danger that was posed to tunnel rats in the Vietnam conflict, right? They had to go through the tunnels in the Viet Cong, and you have snakes and shit, booby traps everywhere, and it's dark, and you don't know what's waiting for you around every corner, right? Times that like by a million. Like take Viet Cong tunnels and have them have a baby with like a Bond villain's lair. And that's what you have with regard to like hardened underground facilities, right? Subterranean operations. So sub-T operations, the US Army came out with kind of an outline of what those challenges are back in November of 2016. You can actually look that up. And there's a reason that DARPA had the sub-T challenge, which is to leverage things like autonomous weapon systems, drone swarms, and all this other stuff. So that's just number one, right? The Mullah regime has spent 30 years burying, hardening, and building these friggin' underground facilities everywhere. Additionally, they've been struck with, brilliant guided munitions, which calls into question, say, the structural integrity of certain tunnels. So now you're like, okay, I got to make sure it doesn't collapse on top of me. And then finally, you have all this stuff, all this highly, like high, medium enriched uranium, so like 60% plus, which is really toxic stuff. And who knows if the canisters have been ruptured and they've been splattered all over the place. And so you don't want to make sure you don't breathe that in. And like removing all that's a real pain in the ass. You have to worry about things like emissive radiation, all this stuff. There's a reason that we created, you actually mentioned this somebody had mentioned, either you or maybe Ollie or somebody had talked about how special forces train. It's not so much special forces or Delta, although Delta looks at some of this. We actually created something called NEST, Nuclear Emergency Strike Teams, that was created, and it was in part motivated by things like having broken arrows, or if we like, there's times where we've actually accidentally lost H bombs, or you have like a thing on a plane and it crashes in a swamp. I mean, it's crazy, right? So they send in these guys to go and get that stuff out, and they have to be specially trained because of this, the toxic nature of highly enriched uranium or plutonium or fissile material in general. So, I mean, there's that. Here's the other issue. Even if you get all that, right? Just because you take the highly enriched uranium away doesn't preclude the Mullah regime from pursuing alternative means to getting WMDs, which is why the Mullah regime has to go. So, like, people are like, well, we have a ceasefire. We're getting ready to do some really serious heavy hitting while we're in the ceasefire, like a lot more than anything we've already done. Ultimately, the goal is to put the Mullah regime, or in this case, the Mullah remnants, the regime remnants, in such a weakened spot that you can arm Iranian citizens so they can liberate their country. I actually posted that in the discussion just now, a interview between me and Trevor Loudon. This is about a year ago, when we talked about like what the ultimate goal should be with regards to dealing with the threat posed by the Mullah regime. So in case you want to like, in case people are thinking like, well, is it arming Iranian citizens because like that's like some reactionary response because they didn't plan anything? That's not true. It was always to sit there and assist Iranian people. So, I mean, it's not like I don't want, I know there's people throughout the anti-Mullah diaspora that are concerned about things like, does this mean that we're going to be abandoned? No one's abandoning you. We're already ahead of the timetable regarding the conventional phase of this operation. The next phase, of course, as you kind of mentioned, Armin and Ollie and the rest of them, is there's other phases after that, and that's one of them.
Thanks. All right,
back
who's
to you, Ali.
next?
Okay, I just wanted to touch up on what Jeffrey said. So these tunnels, you have to think about them just in like a very realistic way. If you destroy the exhaust vents, the ventilation systems, these things are like 100, about 80 to like anywhere to like 200 meters underground. You destroy the ventilation shafts, which we largely do all the time, or if you destroy the tunnel entrances, these are things that you just trap all of those missiles, you trap all of the nuclear research, uranium, whatever in there, right? So we know that already. Another thing is, even if they do, let's just say in a world where they did build 11 nuclear weapons deep underground, how are they going to get them out? How are they going to transport them to launchers or anything? They can't take them out because apparently we zeroed in on Natanz and we think that's the facility where they have the uranium and we're watching that 24/7. So there's no way for them to get that out anyway. It's pretty much perpetually trapped in there, as Trump says, like the uranium dust, whatever is deep underground. So that's what we think so far. And yeah, not only for the nuclear facilities, by the way, that are underground, all of the missile cities have been hit all the time in their tunnel entrances and their ventilation shafts. We heard, I think it was like a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, it was like 50 IRGC soldiers suffocated to death or something like that. That number is probably astronomically higher than that, and they're downplaying it. It's probably closer to like hundreds, if not like in the low thousands, that are happening across the country, just by the simple fact that it's hot down there. And if you can't have ventilation in there, if you can't have electricity, water, anything like that, those people are dying, whether they're scientists, IRGC, or anything like that. So that's something that's been severely downplayed.
Yeah, so if you hit the ventilation, the people there die, but then you still have the missiles and the launchers. They're okay for somebody else to come. I mean, they don't care about the people dying down there, as long as the missiles and the launchers are still working. They're like, okay, we'll just come remove the dead bodies and then continue operate later.
I don't even think they're going to move the dead bodies, but how are they going to get those
Oh.
missiles? How are they going to get those missiles out into where they need to go? We hit the railroads. That's it.
Right.
Whatever missiles they have and they launch, they're not going to get resupplied anymore. Because otherwise, you have to
Right.
send it on the roads. So these are going to be like slow moving convoys, easily seen from satellite, and you have to move on the roads. Railroads are not an option anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is why we need to keep hitting them until the regime falls, because if we basically stop these military operations and then just come back, revisit this like a few years from now, then all of those missiles and launchers are still there, right? So if you actually look at the number of missiles that can't be used right now anymore, that number looks very impressive. It looks like 90%, more than 90% of them, right? But if you actually look at the number of missiles that have actually been destroyed, is 30%, right? So that means that if we stop all of this, they get to, more than 70% of their missiles are still there, and eventually they will be able to rebuild the railroads, they will rebuild the ventilation, rebuild the entrances, and they're going to have all of those missiles back again.
Exactly. That's exactly what Jeffrey was saying. And I think that's why Trump says he says nuclear weapons and not uranium as much, because he thinks he realizes that take the uranium out, so what? They're going to go get it maybe like a couple of years down the road. No nuclear weapons, period.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
Jeffrey, another response, and then we can move on.
Yeah, I mean, just to bounce on that, also they would just get turnkey systems from co-aligned states. So Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, Chinese Communist Party, elements out of Pakistan, North Korea. I mean, elements out of Pakistan, so they wanted to give the Mullah remnants or the Mullah regime turnkey nuclear weapons to begin with. And North Korea is the world's largest proliferator of ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons. And indeed, if you think about what was going on prior to well, the current operations or even Operation Midnight Hammer, we caught all throughout the global war on terror, and even before in the late 90s, North Korean regimes sending things like No Dong 1 missiles to the Mullah regime to assist in their missile development. I mean, you think about how, like, the role of AQCon, right? Putin sells Pakistan dual purpose technology like reactors. The Chi-Coms give Pakistanis the wherewithal on how to modify it to support a clandestine nuclear program. It's not just enough to get the official material. I mean, that's important, and you're not wrong. I mean, like right now, you have what's known as a function kill. It's actually some of the assessments we did on one of them, right? Battle and bomb damage assessment, locking off the tunnel so you can't get access to it. If you stop operations and the Mullah regime is left to their own devices, or Mullah remnants, they will continue slowly, however painfully, yes, probably at cost of people, which they don't care, to try and dig that shit out, or try to get, to get WMDs any which way, which is why the goal was always to engage in conventional operations or support operations that would weaken the regime and then enable Iranians to liberate their country. Ultimately, for security, regional and global stability and security, the regime has to go. And to do that, ultimately, it will be the Iranian people that we need to support to do that.